This is Mrs. Tellas. We're going to go ahead and do 1.5 today. We're going to be solving equations using the simple interest formula. And we're also going to be solving one-step literal equations. So when we have a literal equation, literal means that there's more than one letter. So we have to do the opposite of what's there to get the letter alone. And we know we're done when the letter we're solving for is completely by itself on whatever side it started on. So if you look at the very first one, we're solving for L, which means we want L to be by itself in the back. We need to get the W away from it. So we're going to push the W to the front, doing the opposite operation. So since it is a multiply over here, we're going to divide both sides by W. On the right side, it cancels and L drops and it's alone. And then over here, this is the answer, A over W. Okay, so same thing on the next one. Why don't you press pause and try it? You are solving for T. You want to get the T by itself, which means you need to get the R away. So since they are multiplied, you are going to divide by R. So my answer is D over R equals T. I hope you stopped the video and tried that. Okay, if you didn't, try this one. Here you're going to solve for Y, and you want to get the Z away from the Y. So stop the video and give it a try by yourself and see what you come up with. So these are multiplied, and I want to get Y by itself in the backside because that's where it is. So I'm going to divide by Z on both sides, and my answer is X over Z equals Y. Okay, notice on this next one, this is the simple interest formula that we'll be using in our story problems in a little bit. Here we're going to solve for T. So T I want alone in the back. I have to get rid of the PR, and they're all multiplied. So that's multiplied and that's multiplied. So to get rid of the PR, I'm going to divide by PR. The P and the R canceled and T drops. And over here I have I over PR. Okay, on this one I'm solving for P. Same formula, different letter that we're solving for. So when I'm done, P will be alone in the back. So since they're all multiplied, I want to divide by RT because RT needs to go to the other side. So P can be by itself. So I over RT drops and P is alone. Okay, same thing for the next one. Same formula. This time we're solving for R. And I want R alone in the back. So I get rid of the P and the T by dividing it. Since they were all multiplied, dividing it takes care of them. So R is in the back and I over PT is in the front. That's the answer. We're going to be using these. So if you didn't write those down, press pause and write those down. So we're going to be using those formulas. So now I want to solve. So I want to solve for Y now. It says solve for Y. So I want Y alone in the front because that's where it started. So I have to work my way backwards through PEMDAS again. So I'm going to make a T, and I want this Y alone. So I have to think to myself, is there anything I can subtract off of both sides? Well, 4x is added. So I'm going to subtract 4x. On the left side, it cancels and positive 5y drops. And over here, I put the x first and I put the 10 behind it. Now I can't add those together because one has an x and one doesn't. Okay, so that's just the right side now. Now I can divide it all by 5 because 5 and y were multiplied. So the 5's cross out, and my answer over here is negative 4x plus 10 all over 5. This is my answer. Okay, same thing here. I want you to press pause and try number 2, please. It's the same steps, just different numbers. So hopefully you subtracted 2x on both sides. The negative 3y drops. Over here you have negative 2x plus 19. Can't add them. One has an x and one doesn't. They are unlike. Then I divide everything by negative 3. So y equals negative 2x plus 19 all over negative 3. This is the answer. Okay, if you didn't try that one, try this one. So here I would add 8x to both sides. And then I would divide both sides by negative 18. So I end up with 8x plus 1 all over negative 18. I hope you got one out of the three of those right. Okay, it's the same steps again and again. Okay, the numbers change, but the letters are not even changing. All right, so the other thing that we want to do today is we want to practice I equals PRT because that's what's important here. So we're going to change each percent to a decimal. Okay, so this is back in middle school. When you change a number that's a percent to a decimal, you can do it one of two ways. The first way is you can divide by 100. So if you do 8 divided by 100 in your calculator, you will get 0.08. The other way you can do that is that you can take the decimal that's in the back or that's showing and you can move it up 2 places to the front or to the left, which also gives you 0.08. Okay, so same thing here. I can see the decimal, so I move it up 2 places, or I take 1.5 and divide it by 100, and I get 0.015. So hopefully you remember that or can do that very quickly because we need to do it in these problems. Okay, so this is the formula that we talked about before. We were manipulating it and solving for P and for T. Okay, so let's talk about what these things mean. So the letter I stands for interest. The letter P stands for principal. And the letter R stands for rate. And the letter T stands for time. Okay, so rate is always given to you as a percent, and you have to change it to a decimal. T is time in years, so you're looking for words like years to know which one time is. And interest and principal are both money. Principal is always more. This is always the bigger number, principal. Okay, and you'll look for words like interest to know it's interest. It won't say principal. You'll have to know that that number is the principal. So let's go ahead and take a look. So if I look at my first example, it says Susan deposited $500 in the bank. The bank will give her a 6.25% interest rate if she keeps her money in the bank for 3 years. How much interest will she have at the end of the 3 years? So I know some things from my given information. I know that this is T, 3. I know that this is R because it says it and also because it's a percent. And I know that this is 500 is P because that's what the initial money was. It started at $500. The question also says how much interest. So I don't know I. So I'm going to plug in what I know. I equals PRT. The other thing I have to do is I have to change this percent to a decimal. And I do that by moving the decimal up 2 places. So the number that I will use is 0.0625 for R. Okay, if I use 6.25 and forget to change it, my interest will be more than my principal. And the interest is never more than the principal. Never. That's a way to check. So let's plug. We don't know I. It's a question mark. So we leave it as I. We do know P. It's 500. So we put in 500 for P. In for R, we put in 0.0625. And in for T, we put in 3 years. And then we use our calculator. So I'm going to use my calculator. You can use your handheld or you can use your Desmos. So 500 times 0.0625 times 3 gives me $93.75. And my check is that my interest is smaller than my principal, and it is, so I'm right. That's a reasonable answer. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, at the end of Joey's 3-year loan, he had to pay $2,106 in interest to the bank. If he originally borrowed $5,200, what was the interest rate as a percent? Okay, what was the interest rate? That's the question. All right, so hopefully you noticed that this is 3 years. This is T. He had to pay $2,106 in interest, so this is I. And he originally borrowed $5,200. That's the bigger money. It's how much he borrowed. It's his initial amount, so that's the P. The question says, what was the interest rate? So we don't know the R. That's the question mark. So let's see. I is 2106, P is 5,200, and T is 3. So we use our formula and we plug it in. So in for I is 2106. I went right in there. P is 5,200. R is just R because we don't know it, and T is time. So these two need to be multiplied. So 5,200 times 3 is 15,600. The R stays. 2106, it just drops right down. And now because R wants to be alone and they're multiplied, I divide both sides by 15,600. So let's type it in. 2106 divided by 15,600. That gives me 0.135 as the interest rate because those cancel. Now, interest rate is always a percent. So I move the decimal over. 1, 2. So this is a 13.5% interest rate. Okay, let's try another one. Joe borrowed $15,000 at a 5.5% interest rate to buy a new car. If he ended up owing $3,712.50 in interest to the bank, how many years did it take him to pay off the car loan? Okay, so if he borrowed $15,000, that's his initial amount. That's P. It's also the bigger of the two numbers. 5.5% interest rate, that makes it R. It's a percent. It also says it's the rate. And he owed $3712.50 in interest. So that's the I. The question is, how many years? So I don't know the time. So interest is $3712.50. Principal is $15,000. And rate is 5.5%. But remember, we can't have a percent. So we move the decimal up 2 places. So that's 0.055 that we want to use. Okay, so just using our formula. And for I put 3712.50. In for P goes 15,000. In for R, 0.055. And T is the part I don't know. These two need multiplied. You need your calculator. So 15,000 times 0.055. That is 825. So 3712.50. All that did was drop down. 825T. And then I divide by what's in front of T. So let's stick that in our calculator. 3712.50 divided by 825 gives me 4.5 years. I hope it's making sense. I'm really just looking at the numbers, figuring out which letter they apply, and plug them in. If you notice, the only time I just multiply is when I don't know the I. Notice when I don't know the I just multiply them all out. When I don't know one of the other letters, I multiply what I can, and then I divide whatever's next to R. Let's do one more. Number 4. Stephanie earned $1,821.60 in interest by keeping her money in the bank for 5 years. She was earning a rate of 6.2%. How much money did she originally deposit in the bank? Okay, let's see what these are. Let's read. She earned 1,821.6 in interest. This is the I. She kept her money in the bank for 5 years. That is the T for time. And she was earning an interest rate of 7.2. That is the R. So I don't know how much she started with. So I don't know the P. Okay, so I is 1821.60. R is 7.2%. And the rate is, or the time is 5 years. Remember that this has to be changed by moving the decimal up 2 places. So it's 0.072 that I'm going to use. I cannot put a percent number in with non-percent numbers. That's why it has to be changed. So I use the formula. In for I put 1821.60. In for P, I don't know P, so I put a P. R is 0.072, and time is 5. These two need multiplied. So let's multiply using your calculator. 0.072 times 5 is 0.36. and P stays with it. The other side, 1821.60. All that did was drop down. Now I divide by 0.36. So 1821.60 divided by 0.36 is 5060, or $5,060. Okay, and my check is that the principal is bigger than the interest. It's more. Okay, so it's a reasonable amount. So that's the answer. So I've done one of each kind. I hope that you understand what's going on. If you have any questions, email or jump in on a conference. Thanks very much. Goodbye.